You mentioned EOS before. You've implemented that, or you are implementing it, or what?
Yeah, it's so weird implementing it for one person, as an owner operator. But that's one of the first things I did, before I even started getting licenses was I did like almost my 2 day yearly EOS where I filled out the, vision traction organizer and all of that. Like that is the first thing I did. I bought a 4x8 whiteboard and I turned on music and I did nothing but that for 2 days just to figure out what's in my head, what is my vision, and to have me rowing in a direction, even if it's rowing by myself at this point. And I found it so helpful to do. I still do weekly meetings with myself. And it's not as fun, obviously, but it just helps keep me on track for sure. So I did this back in, 2022, right? And then I went to Best of Success and I watched Benny speak. And he talked about rocket fuel, which is one of Gino Wickman's books, and talking about the difference between a visionary and a integrator. And for the longest time, I thought my identity was an integrator because of how I had to function in my last job and jobs before for the other general contractor. I was a doer. I believed in their vision and I got it done. I almost cussed there, but I stopped myself. I got it done. And then I read that book and I was like, oh my God, like I am not an integrator. I'm a visionary. And then it was like my whole existence made sense after that, and then I could finally breathe because there are things that you're a visionary too that we are not great at. I think you're a visionary. Are you a visionary? You have to be.
I have a little bit of both, but I'm more visionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are things that I'm not good at, but I never understood why. And then I read that book and I was like, okay, this makes sense. And
Yes.
so I give myself a little bit more grace now after reading it.
All right. So we got to geek out on this a little bit. So EOS geekery here. I had the same exact
Sorry.
experience. And so for those of you who don't know, EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, go to eosworldwide.com. Really good website, books, all that stuff. I'm not an affiliate, although I should be. But a lot of people have heard of the book Traction and have probably read it or leafed through it or might be sitting on your bookshelf collecting dust or whatever. And I, like a lot of people, read Traction a couple times. Like, all right, I get it, but like, there's a lot of stuff in there, especially when you're operating, by yourself, and you're like, I dismissed it a couple times. I'm like, that's too much. I don't have the time to go through that. I don't really understand it. It's just me. And then I read Rocket Fuel. I read it on a plane to Texas. It was March 2021. I remember that like so vividly. And that was the light bulb for me. And I was like, wow, I get it. Right. So I'm a little bit of both. Like if you take the assessment, but I've been playing integrator for a long time because I'm the owner of the business and there's a lot that just needs to get done. And just, someone has to do it and there's no one else to do it besides
Yeah.
me. Right. So I've gotten really good at the integrator type things. But when I read that book, yes, that word grace is really good because like, oh, there's a reason that I procrastinate on this and like I am not good at that. And like not to make excuses, like you've got to take ownership. Like one of our core values is extreme ownership. Mm-hmm. So I take ownership of the fact that I suck at certain things. But that book kind of gave me permission to hire out some of those things, whether it's employees or, consultants or things like that, to kind of get out of my own way, because I realized that me trying to do those things, not being good at them, not doing them on time, like my taxes or whatever it might be, like those are holding back the business and they're holding back, the people in our company. And so that's been a game changer for me. Like EOS we've been implementing it for almost a year, like to a T. Even in the books, it says like it's going to take a couple years to like really, really get into it. And so it's a process. But we're having our Q2 meeting this Friday, actually. And I was going through this morning and prepping for it and finalizing the agenda and all that. And I was like, it makes you feel so good because there's structure around like all the stuff that's out there in orbit, like orbiting our heads 24/7. It kind of gives a lot, it gives it a lot of structure. So
Yeah. And especially with your core value of extreme ownership, there if you're implementing EOS in your company, there is no room for less than extreme ownership, right? Especially if you're doing your team meetings and you're going over like your goals and the what your
rock,
metrics are. Your
rock,
rocks, yes,
yeah,
going over your rocks and everything, there's no way that you can't have extreme ownership. And one of the things I liked about it when I worked for the other company was that it held everybody accountable to what they're supposed to be. And it was easier for us to manage up or manage out because when you do those, not a lot of people even do yearly reviews, right? But when you start implementing those quarterly reviews with your employees and you are kind of grading them based off of your core values, are you exhibiting that most of the time, sometimes, or not at all? It is so much easier to manage people that way. And if you have to discipline them or write them up, it's kind of like, okay, here's why. And instead of like, it's not objective or it's not subjective, it's objective. Is that right? Yeah. You
yep.
know what I mean? I found that like was one of the best things with managing people, how helpful it was.
I completely agree. Yeah, you're able to give one another feedback without it being like an attack, without it being subjective,
Yeah.
and it's like truly like you have the vision, and everyone's like knows what that is. So like if you're not going to give people feedback, then you're not helping one another like achieve that vision. And if you're not into EOS or anything like that, like it sounds kind of woo woo, but like it's so true. It's like it's black and white. Like
It is. Yeah.
this is what is required of all of us, and we're able to like have these open candid conversations without feeling like attacked.
Hmm.
And it's so freeing because as we've grown the team, like it really helps you get out of your own way, and you're able to say, man, guys, like I'm just not good at this, like can you guys help me with this, or like just admit because we can't be good at everything, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes as business owners, like I go through this, like I think I have this false belief that I have to be good at all the aspects of business, right? But
Hmm.
that's just not reality. Maybe some people out there are, but that's not me. So yeah, it's awesome.
I think the one last thing really quick about that, if anybody is listening and they are implementing EOS, I think, one of the best pieces of advice now that I'm an owner, I don't have staff yet, but I will at some point. But, as an employee on the leadership team with the other owners, right? You have to just remember that when you're in those leadership team meetings, that your hats are off, your ownership hat is off, and everybody's equal at that table. And I think that was like one of the hardest things for us to have the concept of, because it's like you're an owner and you want to respect them, and they are ultimately the leaders of the company, but then you got to take that hat off. And so if I can give you any advice too, it would be to try and take that hat off and make sure that everybody feels like they have an equal say at the table in that leadership team meeting.